Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 23 of Cellular Healing TV. This is David Asarno, and along with my co-host, actually, he's on vacation right now, Warren Phillips, and we come here every single week to share with you the 180-degree lifestyle and the 180-degree information from Dr. Pompa that most people don't know, aren't willing to engage in and have the conversation. And today, we're going to talk about the 5 big vitamin deficiencies that most Americans are having, and they don't know it, and it's causing diseases out there. So welcome, Dr. Pompa.
No, thank you. Appreciate it.
So what are some of these vitamin deficiencies? I hear, last week, why don't we pick up with vitamin D, since we spoke about vitamin D last week?
Yeah, vitamin D, we know that it's estimated that about 3/4 of the population have a vitamin D deficiency. I think it's really come into vogue that, hey, take vitamin D, right? Take vitamin D. And we spoke of a little problem there. Yeah, a lot of people have a vitamin D deficiency, but people are running to their local vitamin store or Costco, and they're taking a certain amount of vitamin D. Hey, look, we used to hear doctors say, oh, don't take vitamin D. It can cause cancer, hip fractures, and or a vitamin D overdose, right? Because it's fat soluble and it can build up in the body. Well, it's not so simple as we talked about last week. Really the reason it can cause problems is because it competes for the same receptors as other fat-soluble vitamins. They're called cross receptors, and therefore it creates deficiencies in vitamin A, which can affect the immune system, and it can cause deficiencies, further deficiencies in vitamin K2, which we'll talk about today, which it's estimated that almost 100% of Americans are deficient in, and therefore that starts to cause hip fractures because you can't get calcium in the cell, can't get calcium in the bone. Despite having high vitamin D levels, it actually makes it worse. So that's the issue.
Well, we spoke last week about vitamin D and sunshine and how cholesterol sulfate is tied to that.
Yeah, I mean, so vitamin D plays a significant role in many of the body's processes. I mean, look, it's low vitamin D has an increase in heart disease. I mean, I think it's 43%. Diabetes, almost 50%. So we know that low vitamin D is linked to major diseases. And then when you know that vitamin D, sunshine, the lack of it is linked to this cholesterol sulfate issue, well, that opens up a whole nother can of worms with neurodegenerative conditions. And, the list keeps going on. I mean, these fat-soluble vitamins, fat-soluble, just to kind of, get our listeners to understand, that means that they stick around in the body longer. They're fat soluble as opposed to water soluble that you can't really take too much of. They just kind of flush out. Well, I mean, God had design in that. The fat soluble vitamins, they really stay in the body because we need them so much. But if we're not getting enough sunlight, therefore we're not producing enough vitamin D. Unless you're eating a ton of fish and dairy products and grass-fed, that is. You're not going to get it from your diet. So you need it from the sunlight. That's why so many people are deficient, David, because obviously, they're slathering sunscreen and they're afraid of the sun because, once again, it's a 180-degree lifestyle. Everyone, you can't turn on the television or read an article about how the sun is going to cause skin cancer. So everyone's staying away from it. Everyone is slathering sunscreen. When we were at our camp with a ski camp with the kids, I mean, every day, 10 times a day, put your sunscreen on. Did you put your sunscreen on? My son Simon was like, well, why do you need that stuff? It's like, he just went out there and, he got the sun and he doesn't burn. And of course he got dark and never needed sunscreen. But, he was telling them how bad sunscreen is and what the problems are. So the 10-year-old knew, but the vitamin D issue is a big issue. I mean, it really is. I mean, so I don't want to scare people away from taking vitamin D, or more importantly, let's get in the sun. But if you're not able to, then you want to take a vitamin D that is balanced with vitamin K, vitamin A, vitamin E, other fat-soluble vitamins. Systemic Formulas is the one that we have in our house. Systemic Formulas has a balanced product in the right ratios. One is in liquid for those who have absorption issues. It's liquid vitamin D3. And then the other one is called DV3, D as in dog, V as in Victor, 3, and that is a pill form. Typically, the average person can take 5,000–6,000 units of vitamin D. People who are severely deficient may need more. Sometimes we dose high periodically, like once or twice a week we dose high, even like 100,000 units. But again, that's more up to the practitioner, I would say. But again, sunlight, absolutely, we need it. Vitamin D deficiency, rampant, no doubt. Just absolutely do not take it without the other fat solubles at the right ratio.
By the way, I was putting on my shea butter while I was in Florida last week,
Yeah.
and it was the comments that I was getting. It's funny how people are like, that's not sunscreen. You need sunscreen. And meanwhile, I'm not burned. I'm actually just tan. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's 180-degree opposite. Do the opposite. Last week we talked about how actually with the initiation of all the sunscreen, we actually have cancer rates rising almost proportionally. You'd almost think that the sunscreen was causing it. There's some fact is that I believe that sun actually prevents skin cancer and other cancers, obviously, and other disease. Vitamin D is a massive deficiency. We absolutely need it. It's linked to diabetes. It's linked to heart disease. It's linked to cancer. It's linked to immune problems. It's linked to autoimmune. People that have very low vitamin D absolutely have a predisposition for autoimmune. So it's very, very important in autoimmune as well, which is, again, massive epidemic. What are the right numbers when you look at a test? Oh, man, there's so much debate over that. I know that the standard number is, somewhere between, depends on the test. It could be 20, it could be 30, which is kind of the low. But, I find that people do better at least, over 50 to 80, somewhere in that zone. Some say 60 to 100. Again, I think the complication, David, I've spent some time looking at studies, and I think one of the issues is that genetics plays a role on where that level would be, and I think that's when we run into a little trouble. But we definitely don't want to see really low vitamin D. I mean, under 20 and you're in a massive, there's a problem there. I believe some people genetically can function in the mid-30s and still feel really good and have normal life. But again, so genetics do play a role, so it's hard to just look at a number. But we need vitamin D, we need sun, and again, let's say half of America is deficient. And David, I want to put up a point because God knew what He was doing, right? The darker the skin, the more sun people need to raise their vitamin D. So therefore, people walking around in equatorial areas, whether it's Jamaica or Africa, they have very dark skin. They can be out all day. But the problem is take that person with dark skin and put them in an area that's cloudy. Now, all of a sudden, they're not getting hours of sunlight to raise their vitamin D. That's a problem. So the darker skin you have puts you at greater deficiency if you're not in the sun longer. Therefore, someone who is perhaps, like I said, African American, Mexican descent, Hispanic descent, the darker skin, you move them to northern climates, and those folks are at massive risk of vitamin D deficiency, and therefore heart disease, diabetes. It puts them at risk of all those inflammatory types of conditions. Vitamin D diminishes inflammation.
One other thing that you bring this up, if you think about it, we're working inside these days. We're not outside like we used to. And so you think about the people who are in these southern climates, that they need more, and yet now we're all inside all the time, not only avoiding the sun through sunscreen, we're avoiding it by hibernating indoors.
Yeah, absolutely. I just had another dog just bust in my room. That was the little one. So remember that one? Here, let's see if I can bring her up here. Come here, come here, come here. This is the one that oh, come here, you. Oh boy, she got bigger since last time, didn't she? Look
Oh
at
my gosh, look at her. She's so cute.
Isn't she? She's so cute. That's what I always say. She's so cute. She's so cute. Now, my dog's down here going to get jealous, so I better put this one down, or she'll get mad.
Before
Anyway,
you know it, you'll have 2 dogs on your lap.
yeah. Well, so the second one, that's the first one. So let's go to number.
Let's go to vitamin K2 because you brought that up already, and so it's a natural transition. And you said almost 100% of the population is deficient in vitamin K2.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, right? Now, almost 100%. Well, why is that, David? Why do you think that is? You know, as a layperson.
You know what? This is one that I actually don't understand. So you've actually stumped me. I'm probably like most people, like, I'm learning all about vitamin D last week when we were talking about it. Vitamin K, to me, isn't K the one that clots, helps with blood clotting?
That's a good answer. Vitamin K1 is the clotting factor, and oftentimes people get it confused.
Yeah.
Vitamin K1 you can get in vegetables, green leafy vegetables, things like that. But vitamin K2 is really the issue. Vitamin K2 is not the clotting factor. Vitamin K2 is really responsible for moving calcium in your cells, in your bones. So therefore, you can have all the calcium you want. Typically, most Americans, you'll notice that calcium is not on these 5 major deficiencies. Most Americans have plenty of calcium. Matter of fact, I think the average American calcium intake is about 1,700 milligrams. In areas like rural China and other places, it's 500 on average, and yet they have 0 osteoporosis. So is osteoporosis a calcium? No, it's more complicated than that. You need vitamin K2 to bring calcium into the bone. You need it to get into the cell, into the muscles. And by the way, you can't live without calcium. You need it for every type of your heart to contract. I mean, everything, every cellular process. So is calcium important? Yes, but we have plenty. It's the vitamin K2 that we need to bring the calcium in. So that's the issue. Here's why most Americans, if not all, they say, and that's a big word, but let's say it's 90%, let's say it's 99%, I don't know the number, but most people are. Here's why. Because Americans eat grass-fed nothing. Where do you get it from? See, cows can eat grass that has K1, and cows have the ability to actually take in the K1 and convert it to K2. Us humans do not. So we have to get it from our diet, just like we have to get the sunlight to make the vitamin D. As you see the sunlight coming in here from my left. But you need to eat grass-fed. Where is the K2? It's in the fat of grass-fed products like butter, loaded with fat, therefore loaded with vitamin K2. Cheese, loaded with fat. Now, I say, let me back up, grass-fed butter, grass-fed cheese. If you buy grain-fed, there is virtually no K2. This is why so many people are deficient. They're eating nothing. They're eating grain-fed animal products, whether it's meat, the fat from the meat. So yes, if you eat a nice grass-fed steak, you're showing me a monkey. Why the monkey?
Because the grass-fed X-Factor butter oil that you told me about is in my coffee.
Yes, exactly. Loaded.
By the way, I didn't know why I was doing it. You just started doing it and told me about it, so I just started doing it. Now I know why.
Weston Price, who traveled the world, right, looking at healthy people or non-healthy people, you know, he realized that when grass was growing at its highest rate of growth in the spring, it's like literally this small window, and the cows eat it at that time, the milk that they give off, and then they make the butter at that time, this X factor nutrient heals guts, it heals the immune system, and it's very healing to the body. So we're blessed that we can eat it year-round because they harvest it during that small time, and then we're able to buy it. We carry that stuff on our website, X Factor Butter Oil. And he also noted that when you put it with things like cod liver oil and other fats, you can get an extra benefit. But yes, loaded, David, with K2. The Amasi products, the Beyond Organic products that eat the grass, are loaded with good bacteria and loaded with vitamin K2. The fattier, the better. Grass-fed meat, the fat, K2. The dairy products, K2. So everybody is deficient because they're not eating grass-fed or enough grass-fed. Oh, and by the way, they avoid what, David? They're avoiding fat, right?
Yeah.
180-degree lifestyle. We eat fat. They're avoiding fat. Therefore, they're, and they're not getting grass-fed. K2 deficiency causing major, major disease. Absolutely links to all types of, whether it's immune problems, cancer, bone problems, you name it. K2 is the issue, not calcium. I would put K2 even above vitamin D as far as massive deficiency causing massive problems.
How about next one on the list? Let's talk about iodine.
No, with iodine, again, made the list for sure. Again, it's estimated that, a third of the whole planet is iodine deficiency. Then you start into Midwestern states in the United States where there's, they're not touching the seashores, the oceans. You're talking probably more like 90% of the population being iodine deficient. Why is it important? Why is it causing disease? Well, look, the lack of iodine is absolutely a player in ADD, brain problems, IQ. So we know that the kids with lower iodine, even moderate deficiencies, David, have a massive difference in their IQ scores. Right. So why? Because iodine plays a role in brain development. So we know that. It plays a role in the immune system. It plays a role in the thyroid. This is why we're seeing massive outbreaks of thyroid issues. Look, I would estimate that at least 25%, I bet it's higher, and those are numbers that we can actually quote from studies, of thyroid issues are caused directly, simply because of an iodine deficiency. Brain problems, all these things, breast issues, fibrocystic breasts are caused by the lack of iodine. Because there's iodine receptors in the breast tissues. It plays a role in hormones. We need iodine to really, there's an estrogen called estriol, or E3. Estriol is the most protective estrogen, which I run a lot of tests, David, and I see estriol deficient in most women in the United States. Why? Most of it's linked to the lack of iodine. Estriol protects you from cancer. It protects you from the more toxic types of estrogen. So when estriol goes low, you're at risk for major cancer and hormone-driven types of cancer. So iodine deficiency, major problem. David, one of the reasons why we're seeing a massive, I believe, problem with iodine is, number one, it's not in the soil anymore. We are depleting soil. Biblically, we would turn soil over every 7 years. We would rotate crops. We wouldn't grow the same crops. So that's an issue. But we've talked about this with cholesterol sulfate. We've talked about it with disease. There's a chemical called glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in Roundup, the #1 herbicide used on this planet. Monsanto produces it. It works, David, by pulling minerals from the soil and from the weeds. That's how glyphosate works. It pulls minerals, and therefore it depletes the weeds of certain minerals it needs to grow, and it kills them. So what it's doing is that it's designed to pull minerals. It's pulling minerals not just from the weeds, but it's pulling it from the soils. We're depleting the soil, especially in the central part of the country where we're using glyphosate like crazy. I go there, David, I do lectures. The amount of thyroid issues is absolutely astronomical, and most of it is because of the lack of iodine. And I know what most people are thinking right now. Yes, but my salt that I'm eating has iodine. Okay, it's like me giving me $1 and I give you a penny back. How would you feel about that? That's not going to do it. Most people need to be absolutely supplementing with iodine. It's just simply not in the food chain anymore, and it's a massive, massive issue.
Where do you get iodine? How do you supplement iodine?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Where would you get it? Typically, you can get it from different things that come from the ocean, but again, I mean, that's a problem because some people don't have access to that. So much of what's coming out of the ocean is polluted. We have to be careful of other heavy metals, mercury. But people that live on the eastern and western side or near oceans, typically they don't suffer as much of the iodine deficiency. Where do you get it? There's a product that Systemic makes called TMI, like too much information.
Yeah.
It's in the right ratio of iodine to iodide that we know that we like to use that ratio to target the thyroid. By the way, you can't make thyroid hormone without iodine. So that's why it's so darn important. It's the combination of an amino acid, tyrosine, and iodine that come together and makes that hormone, that most people are trying to take from their doctor, but we need iodine to make it. And here's another problem, David. Heavy metals, and so many people are heavy metal toxic. It actually competes for the iodine receptor. It blocks the iodine. So heavy metals can get on those receptors, and then therefore your body's not able to use the iodine, and then it flushes out too. So many reasons why iodine is causing disease in most people needs to be supplemented. So even by taking just one of those TMI a day can be a massive difference. And in one pill, there's about 12 milligrams of iodine. If you don't have a deficiency, I take iodine just hit and miss. I may take it once or twice a week, just as I would get it in food. So I don't take it every day, but most people probably do need to take it every day for a couple of years. Why? Because they are so deficient.
How about magnesium?
Yeah, magnesium made the list. It's number 4 on the list. And magnesium deficiency is a massive problem. And again, we see it, I think a lot of it is due to the overuse of glyphosate, which pulls a lot of the magnesium out of the food supply. So it is less in the food supply than ever. I believe that there's a greater demand in the body for magnesium. Magnesium plays a major role in hormones. So you need magnesium to really have normal hormone function. And as you know, hormone imbalance is a massive epidemic for multiple reasons in this country. And most of the clients that I see and deal with, they start taking magnesium and they go, oh my gosh, I feel better. It's like their muscles, they have less joint problems, less muscle problems. Their hormones feel better, or they feel better hormonally, I should say. Even they think more clear. It helps with the brain fog, and there's so many. It helps with the energy. I mean, again, we can put magnesium in most pathways in the body. You need magnesium for normal methylation, and again, I don't want to go down that road, but it's how your body removes toxins and how your body removes toxic hormones, and so it really is in so many different cellular function areas, and most people being deficient, it's something that when people take, they go, oh, I feel better. But David, one of the problems is most people are taking most of them, if you go into your health food store or Whole Foods and you look, those are cheap magnesiums. It's typically magnesium oxide, hydroxide, and those forms of magnesium really aren't absorbed that well. We like to take magnesium malate or glycinate or glycinate, and I would say even a magnesium citrate. In a store in Whole Foods recently, I looked at what types of magnesium were there, and some of them had one of those, like the better ones, the higher priced magnesiums, would have a little bit of one of those, and then more of the magnesium oxide. So it'd have magnesium glycinate and then magnesium oxide. So, and they were still charging a lot for it. Typically, you have to go with a physician-grade magnesium. Designs for Health is one that we use. Systemic Formulas has one. We sell both of those physician-grade magnesiums. Magnesium malate is one of my favorites. I love magnesium malate. So, when you look at a lot of the Systemic Formulas, they have those more expensive magnesiums in it. Is there a time to take a non-expensive magnesium? Yeah, if you want to help your bowels move. because if you take a magnesium hydroxide or a magnesium oxide, it will make you go to the bathroom. It will move it out. Why? Because your body just flushes it out, and then it will create diarrhea. Even Epsom salt, which is magnesium sulfate, your body will not absorb. So take 2 tablespoons of that if you want your bowels to move, and that magnesium will just flush right through you. But you won't absorb it. You won't get it into the cell. That's when we want a magnesium malate, a magnesium citrate, or a magnesium glycinate.
Well, it's so amazing. Higher quality products make a world of difference, don't they?
Yeah, when you look at the cellular formulas, we've talked about Moore's, we've talked about Epic, a lot of those cellular formulas that, I was a part of helping create, and, the importance of them. They all have these really expensive types of vitamins that really are absorbed into the cell. So yeah, when you're going to Costco or wherever you're buying your vitamins, most of that, David, it's synthetic. Most of it's not absorbed. Matter of fact, some of it can even be more stressful for your body.
Which
So
is
yeah, it's worth spending extra money on good stuff, no doubt.
which is why there's all the information out there today about, vitamins are a waste of money, and it's mostly because of the quality of the vitamins.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no doubt about it. There's Systemic Formulas makes a product. If those out there just want to take a good multi, it's called Spectra, and it is truly the only whole food vitamin on the market. And there's a Spectra 1 and Spectra 2. You have your water solubles and you have your fat solubles in Spectra 2. And these nutrients are extracted from organic vegetables. And it is truly an extract, so it is truly in a form that it was exactly the way it was in the vegetable. So definitely a more absorbable product. You need far less. You need fractions of the amounts when you take a product that is that natural. It really is. So if you desire to take a multivitamin, the Spectra from Systemic it's a wonderful product. It's in my cabinet. I don't take a multivitamin. But the Spectra, I do. Again, I just take it hit and miss because I do eat very well. I do get most of, all of my, nutrients, from the food that I eat for sure. But I buy all organic, David. We eat all organic. Those of you who don't, it's worth taking the Spectra for sure. And then again, we're giving you these 5 deficiencies because, these are the things that most people are lacking. So if you're going to take, if you're going to focus on vitamins, these are the 5 right here. These are the 5 that most Americans lack and don't know, just like you started the show saying.
So there's one other one out there that I'd like to discuss today, and I see it advertised all over the place. B12 shots. So let's talk about B12 and what people are doing with it.
Yeah, B12 made the list, top 5. It's funny too, David. Beyond these 5, I want to make this point, and I want to make it loud and clear. Most diseases today are not caused from the lack of vitamins. I would say in the past that was probably a bigger issue. And I know the soils are depleted. I made the argument myself. But we just have access to so many more foods and variety of foods, and I do believe the soils are a major issue because of glyphosate and the herbicides that we're using that pulling the minerals out and over fertilizing with just certain nutrients, missing another. I get it. However, diseases today are mostly driven by inflammation, which arguably some of these vitamins play a role in anti-inflammatory roles, but most of it is due to what we have too much of, not what we lack. And you've heard me speak about too many toxins driving inflammation. That's the problem with most people, especially people that have chronic disease. Too many bad fats, all the vegetable oils everyone's eating in all the food. Get rid of those things in driving up glucose and insulin, which is driving inflammation of the cell. All the breads and the grains and everything. I mean, listen, being away and staying with teenagers for a week at ski camp, David, you wouldn't believe it. I didn't believe it. Most of them have medications next to their bed. These are teenagers, young kids. I'm not kidding. And they're all addicted to grains and sugar. That's what they're addicted to. And they're athletes. So imagine if they weren't. Maybe it would be worse. I don't know. But I was in awe of what these kids are eating, and I could not believe it. And they didn't hear me, I know, but unfortunately they'll hear me once they get sick. But that is the big cause of disease. Now we look at vitamin deficiencies. Absolutely a problem. Absolutely a piece of that puzzle of why people are getting sick. But my goodness, it's not, the answer isn't taking the magic pill. The answer is getting rid of those 3 things that are driving inflammation. Inflammation of the cell is the reason why there's disease, hormone problems and the epidemics that we're seeing. So back to number 5, B12. And that was a very important point, so I had to make it. I should have started at the top of the show at that point. But number 5 is B12. Why is B12 an issue? Well, we need B12 for just about every cellular process. We need B12. We talked a little bit about methylation. I don't want to do a show on it. Read R number 5 under articles. Watch the video, read that. R number 5, you'll find an article about methylation, how it plays an important role in not just getting rid of toxins, but an important role of how we adapt or not adapt to stress, anxiety, sleep problems, and how you need methylation to get rid of toxic hormones. Most Americans are methyl depleted. It causes cancers, hormone problems, because we are lacking methyl groups because of stress, whether it's physical, chemical, or emotional. Read the article. B12 plays a major role in this methylation, or what we call methyl donors that our body needs. If you lack B12, you lack methylation, and therefore you have hormone problems, cellular problems, energy problems, brain problems, the list goes on. So why then is there a B12 deficiency? Because it has to be absorbed in our gut. Most Americans, David, have gut issues, absorption problems, and therefore they're not able to get the vitamin B12 that's made in our gut with bacteria. So you need these bacteria that make the B12 intrinsic factor, and therefore people are deficient in this because of the gut issues that we're seeing in the United States. That's why this one's a big deficiency. So it's not from a food thing like we talked about before as much as it is from inflammatory gut problems, leaky gut, lack of absorption, therefore no B12, therefore lack of methylation, and all the problems that follow. So can we take B12? Yeah, you can, but a lot of people still don't absorb it.
How about all those shots that people are taking, B12 shots?
Well, most of it, David, it's not in an active form. So they're taking a certain form called cyanocobalamin, which you have to transition into an active form, which is hydroxycobalamin. And most people can't make the conversion. So the shots seem to help a little bit, and then they don't help because there's this whole process of conversion that has to take place. And if you're not able to do that, it doesn't help. But a lot of people do, David. The shots help them, especially in the beginning, because they're not able to absorb it. So they're taking B12 and still not even getting the benefit of that. So we utilize typically an active form. There's 2 forms that we like: a methylcobalamin or a hydroxycobalamin. And we like them for different reasons. Hydroxycobalamin is the active form. It goes right into the cell. So oftentimes we give that. Methylcobalamin we like because it has a methyl group on it. So different forms for different reasons. Cyanocobalamin, which is in 99% of the B12 that you buy in your health food store, is not a good form. Most people will not benefit from that form. Some people, it actually becomes toxic to them, the cyanocobalamin. So definitely look at your bottles right now if you're at home and see what form is in your product. Sometimes, David, we sublingual, and that's very important. We also give it with folate. We give it with an active form of folate called it's called methyl tetrahydrofolate. That active form of folate is what goes right into the cell. Some people have a genetic SNP called the MTHFR gene, where they're not able to transition that folate into the active form. So that's why we like to use the active form of folate. Again, these are more expensive products. You go, well, I can get this product at my thing for $10. Why is this one, $40 or $50? Active forms. And a lot of people have these genetic SNPs. They're not able to make those transitions. Toxic people have trouble making the transition from this form to that form. So again, the active form that your cell likes is the more expensive form, unfortunately, but the one that works.
Is there a brand in particular that you guys recommend?
Yeah, I mean, the Moors is a product, M-O-R-S, that a lot of, brilliance went into that product from Shane Morris, and, I had some say in that product, and it has those active forms that I was talking about. So someone that has that genetic SNP that they don't methylate very well, that I was talking about. And by the way, that's about 15-20% of the population. Most people don't know they have it. They get a lot of anxiety issues, sleep problems. I mean, the list goes on. Don't adapt to stress well, and that gene was turned on, and they don't convert their folate very well. As a matter of fact, regular folate they're taking in a vitamin from the store actually is very toxic to them because they don't convert it. They need the active form. So that product was built out around those folks that have that SNP on that gene and don't transition. So again, you want
to why it's part of the core cellulars.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's one of the core cellular formulas. And again, I think that in that article, R5, I talk about that product, our number 5 article. So and again, the 5 R's, if for new watchers or listeners, those are my 5 R's of cellular healing, how to fix a cell to get well. And, we have some products built around that, but it's not just about products. The 5 R's really is about getting a cell well from nutrition. Yes, we have some tools in the form of supplements that we use, but you have to get rid of the toxic sources as well. Read those articles. There's one for each R, R1 through R5.
Dr. Pompa, thank you so much for the great information. Is there any final thoughts that you would like to leave everyone with today?
Yeah, I mean, again, stop taking most of the vitamins you're taking. Focus on those 5. I'm sure you don't have a lack of many other vitamins besides that, but that really gives you focus. And take the quality vitamins. Don't discount shop when it comes to what you're putting in your body. Eat organic. Get most of your vitamins from food. But those are the 5 main deficiencies that most people don't realize they have, that in fact will cause disease. So I hope that helps. And I think that we're going to put out an article about it so we get the message out.
That's awesome. Dr. Pompa, thank you. And just like every week, I took over 2 pages of notes. You probably see me putting my head down. Because as you're talking and sharing information, just like everyone who's watching learns, I learn just as much. And I'm honored to be here every week participating with you and Warren and helping spread the message and this great information to everyone. So for our viewers, thank you for joining us today. As we are today, every Friday, same time, same channel, cellularhealing.tv. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, David.
Thank you, Dr. Pompa.
Yep, bye-bye.
Bye.